Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to be continuing my monthly series on murderers in England who were jailed in a specific month of the year. In this video I'm going to be looking at May 2025 and I've as usual selected 12 cases, this time involving 15 individuals who were jailed for the offence of murder. I'll go through what they did, the name of the victim and the sentence that they received. Welcome to my channel, Andy on Crime, where I talk about high-profile criminal cases and other aspects of criminal law in England and Wales. And if you do want to follow me on other social media platforms, I am on TikTok. My handle is Andy on Crime1, and I'm also on Twitter or X, and my handle is Andy on Crime. So if you are on those, please do give me a follow. If you would like to support my channel, then you can become a member by clicking the join button down below, where you can get exclusive perks, or you can click the link in the description and I believe a link up at the top of the screen and sign up with NordVPN, where you can get a huge discount on a range of their plans. And by signing up through that link, you will be supporting my channel. So thank you very much. And as usual, I'll remind you that anyone convicted of murder in England and Wales will receive a mandatory life sentence. The only question is how long the minimum term or tariff will be. That's the period that someone will spend in prison in full before they are eligible to apply for release. It's only if they satisfy the parole board that they're no longer a danger to the public that they will be released. In really rare cases, someone can be given something called a whole life order. That's where there is no minimum term. That person will never be released from prison unless they successfully appeal their conviction or their sentence. And at recording of this video, there's about 75 to 80 people covering that sentence. With all that being said, let's get into the video. At number 1 is Kieran Goodwin, who was sentenced on the 8th of May. In July 2024, Goodwin murdered his partner, 29-year-old Olivia Wood. Olivia, who was an ecologist from Liverpool, had been in a relationship with Goodwin for less than 3 months. During this time, Goodwin subjected her to escalating physical, emotional and financial abuse. He coerced her into taking drugs, performing sex acts on cameras for other men, and even pressured her to sleep with a stranger. On the 30th of July 2024, the night Olivia planned to leave him, she packed her belongings into a suitcase and a rucksack. However, Goodwin plied her with a lethal dose of cocaine and fatally strangled her in his flat in Frome in Somerset. Emergency services were called at around 2:50 a.m, with Goodwin reporting that Olivia was not breathing. While on the call, he was simultaneously deleting hundreds of potentially incriminating photos and videos from his phone. A post-mortem examination revealed a potentially fatal level of cocaine in Olivia's system and a fractured bone in her neck, an injury commonly associated with fatal neck compression. In addition to the murder conviction, Goodwin was found guilty of 15 other offences against Olivia and 3 former partners. These included 4 counts of rape, 5 counts of causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent, 1 count of sexual assault by penetration, and 1 count of intentional strangulation. He had previously admitted to coercively and controllingly behaving towards all 4 of these women. The court heard that Goodwin's relationships followed a disturbing pattern. He would love bomb his victims with adoration before becoming controlling and abusive. He manipulated them by feigning mental health crises, threatening to self-harm to elicit sympathy, and pressuring them into handing over significant sums of money, funds that he used to support his cocaine habit. He also coerced them into unwanted sexual acts, often involving other men, and used explicit photos to blackmail them. During the sentencing, Judge Martin Picton described Goodwin as a highly manipulative, deviant misogynist and selfish narcissist, and labelled him a thoroughly evil individual. On the 8th of May 2025, 33-year-old Goodwin was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 35 years, as well as 9 concurrent sentences for the sexual offences against the other victims. At number 2 is Abdirahman Ibrahim, who was sentenced on the 12th of May. 21-year-old Ibrahim was convicted of murder following a fatal road rage incident in Birmingham. On the night of the 1st of August 2023, Ibrahim encountered 22-year-old Liam Jones and his friend riding electrical bikes near Coventry Road. Ibrahim, driving a Seat Leon, turned his vehicle around to follow them. Despite the cyclists' attempts to evade him, including going the wrong way down a one-way street, Ibrahim pursued them. He struck Liam's bike twice on Moat Lane, with the second impact causing Liam to collide with a concrete bollard, leading to fatal injuries. After the collision, Ibrahim drove over the bike and fled the scene. He parked the car in Smartbrook, and his brother, Abdirahman Ibrahim, who was a passenger during the incident, called a taxi for them. Despite knowing the severity of the situation, they stopped at a shop before returning home separately. When questioned by the police, Ibrahim provided false information about the whereabouts of the vehicle. At his original trial, the jury failed to reach a verdict, so he was subject to a retrial. During that retrial at Birmingham Crown Court, prosecutors argued that Ibrahim was angered by Liam's showboating, performing wheelies on his bike, and he intended to teach him a lesson. Although Ibrahim had previously pleaded guilty to manslaughter, the prosecution pursued a murder charge, asserting that his actions demonstrated a clear intent to cause really serious harm. The jury found Ibrahim guilty of murder on the 17th of February 2025. His brother Abdirahman Ibrahim pleaded guilty to the offence of assisting an offender. Abdirahman Ibrahim was sentenced on the 12th of May 2025 to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years. His brother Abdirahman Ibrahim received a sentence of 2 years and 10 months. At number 3 is Daniel Larman and Kieran Okocha-Sleight, who were sentenced on the 13th of May. On the 18th of July 2024, 30-year-old Tommy Boom was found fatally stabbed in Miller's Meadow, also known as Semilong Park in Northampton. The incident occurred shortly after midnight when Tommy confronted two individuals, Larman and Okocha-Sleight, who were in the park to sell drugs. Larman pulled out a large hunting knife and stabbed Tommy twice, with one wound to the chest proving fatal. Despite emergency services' efforts, Tommy died at the scene. Following the attack, Larman and Okocha-Sleight filmed the bloodied knife and a blood-stained trainer, adding captions like, "Just had to juice a guy up," accompanied by laughing emojis. He sent these videos to a friend, seemingly boasting about the killing. Later that morning, Larman filmed himself walking past the crime scene before fleeing to Birmingham, where he disposed of the weapon and blood-stained clothing in a canal. Both men were arrested the following day in Birmingham with assistance from West Midlands Police. During police interviews, Larman provided no comment, but later claimed in court that he had acted in self-defence, alleging that Tommy had previously robbed Okocha-Sleight and that the meeting was a set-up. However, the jury rejected this defence. The trial began on the 7th of January 2025 at Northampton Crown Court. During the trial, the prosecution argued that Okocha-Sleight, although not the one who wielded the knife, was complicit in the murder by providing support and backup to Larman. They likened his role to that of a getaway driver in a robbery. The defence contended that Okocha-Sleight did nothing during the stabbing and was merely present. Nonetheless, the jury concluded that he was guilty of murder. After 2 weeks of evidence and 8 hours of deliberation, the jury found both Larman and Okocha-Sleight guilty of murder on the 23rd of January 2025. The court heard that the pair were involved in drug dealing and that the attack was part of a ruthless business linked to drug supply. On the 13th of May 2025, Larman was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 24 years. Okocha-Sleight was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 21 years. At number 4 is Joshua Carroll, who was sentenced on the 14th of May. In September 2022, Carroll murdered Hedley Barry Thompson, a 51-year-old homeless man, in a brutal attack that occurred in Penn Park in Old Trafford in Manchester. The attack took place on the 12th of September when Carroll chased Mr. Thomas through the park, eventually catching up with him and delivering a series of violent blows. The victim was found unconscious next to a bench, suffering from severe head injuries, including a fractured eye socket and serious brain trauma consistent with kicking or stamping. He succumbed to his injuries on the 2nd of October 2022. At the time of the murder, Carroll was an inpatient at Park House, a secure mental health facility operated by Greater Manchester Mental Health NHS Foundation Trust. He had a documented history of mental illness, including diagnoses of schizophrenic disorder, and he had been in and out of inpatient care for approximately 15 years. Notably, Carroll had escaped from the facility on 21 occasions prior to the fatal incident. His family had repeatedly raised concerns about his care and the security measures in place, requesting that he be moved to a more secure unit, a request that was not fulfilled due to capacity issues. Following the murder, Carroll was seen riding Mr. Thomas's bicycle and attempting to clean his shoes in a puddle, actions that were captured on CCTV. Forensic analysis later found Mr. Thomas's DNA on Carroll's right shoe, further implicating him in the crime. Despite denying the murder charge, Carroll was convicted based on the overwhelming evidence presented during the trial. On the 14th of May 2025, Carroll was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years. At number 5 is Owen Blades, who was sentenced on the 15th of May. On the 13th of June 2024, Blades, a 27-year-old from Gainsborough, committed a series of violent crimes in Lincoln, culminating in the murder of 69-year-old John Connolly. Blades had been released from prison just 2 days prior after serving a month of a 12-month sentence for assault. Upon his release, he acquired a stiletto-style knife and embarked on a crime spree that included theft, assault, and ultimately murder. On the day of the murder, Blades stole food from a Tesco Express and later entered Okocha-Sleight's gaming venue, where he stabbed a staff member called Tyler Baxter in the abdomen after being asked not to consume alcohol on the premises. Following this, Blades proceeded to John Connolly's residence on Portland Street. There was no sign of forced entry, suggesting that John may have willingly let Blades into his home. Once inside, Blades subjected John to a brutal attack, stabbing him at least 18 times. John's body was later discovered 5 days later on the 18th of June, after his family raised concerns about his welfare. At the time, Blades was already in custody for the earlier stabbing at Okocha-Sleight. During the investigation, police found blood-stained banknotes on Blades, believed to have been taken from John's home. Blades was initially charged with grievous bodily harm for the Okocha-Sleight incident. However, following the discovery of John's body and upon further investigation, he was charged with murder on the 25th of June. He was also charged with burglary, possession of an offensive weapon, and theft. At a hearing on the 3rd of January 2025, Blades pleaded guilty to all charges, including the murder of John Connolly. He had previously entered a not guilty plea, but changed it before the trial commenced. The court was then informed of Blades' extensive criminal history, which included previous convictions for battery and wounding, and including assaults on his own mother and former partner. Blades was sentenced on the 15th of May 2025 to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 35 years. At number 6 is Mya and Isaiah Marsh, who were sentenced on the 15th of May. On the 5th of November 2024, Mya and Isaiah Marsh murdered 21-year-old Minister in Ference in Kings Norton in Birmingham. The attack, described by the judge as ferocious and truly sickening, stemmed from a dispute over a £200 cannabis debt. The incident occurred on the morning of the 5th of November 2024, when Mya arranged to meet Minister, bringing a kitchen knife to the encounter. During the meeting, she called her brother Isaiah, who arrived and launched a brutal assault on Minister, stabbing him more than 20 times, with Mya handing him the knife during the attack. Minister managed to flee the scene but collapsed nearby due to his injuries. Despite efforts by bystanders and paramedics, he succumbed to his wounds. The siblings attempted to conceal their involvement by disposing of the knives and clothing used in the attack. Mya Marsh then proceeded to work as if nothing had happened, while Isaiah Marsh later sought medical attention for injuries sustained during the assault. During the trial at Birmingham Crown Court, both defendants denied murder, with Isaiah Marsh claiming self-defence and Mya Marsh asserting that she did not anticipate that her brother would use the knife. However, the jury unanimously found them guilty after reviewing CCTV footage and other evidence. In May 2025, the siblings were convicted, and on the 15th of May 2025, they were sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years each. At number 7 is Ryan Wedderburn and Kirk Harris, who were sentenced on the 15th of May. On the evening of the 6th of June 2024, 21-year-old Robert Robinson was fatally stabbed on Catterick Way in Deptford, southeast London. Emergency services responded to reports of a stabbing at approximately 10:35 p.m, but despite their efforts, Robert was pronounced dead at the scene. A post-mortem examination later confirmed that he died from multiple incised wounds. The Metropolitan Police launched a murder investigation, leading to the arrest of 44-year-old Dalziel Wedderburn on the 9th of June. Subsequently, 18-year-old Kirk Harris and 18-year-old Ryan Wedderburn were also arrested and charged with Robert's murder later that month. Investigations revealed that the attack was precipitated by a dispute over a stolen e-bike. Robert had attempted to retrieve his friend's stolen e-bike, leading to a confrontation with the attackers. During the trial, it was revealed that Ryan Wedderburn and his father Dalziel and Kirk Harris had armed themselves and launched a brutal assault on Robert, involving a machete and a shotgun. Their trial commenced at the Old Bailey on the 29th of April 2025, where the defendants faced charges of murder. The prosecution presented evidence detailing the premeditated nature of the attack and the extreme violence inflicted upon Robert. During the proceedings, the court heard testimonies and examined forensic evidence linking the defendants to the crime. The jury found Ryan Wedderburn and Kirk Harris guilty of murder, while Dalziel Wedderburn was found not guilty. The sentencing of Ryan Wedderburn and Kirk Harris took place on the 15th of May 2025, with the judge emphasising the brutality of the crime and the lack of remorse shown by the perpetrators. Both men were given life sentences, with Wedderburn given a minimum term of 22 years and Harris given a minimum term of 21 years. At number 8, we have the unnamed murderer of Kamari Johnson, who was sentenced on the 16th of May. On the 24th of May 2024, 16-year-old Kamari Johnson was fatally stabbed in Hayes, West London, following a dispute over a moped sale. The incident occurred around 1:30 p.m. on Bourne Avenue, where Kamari was found with a stab wound to the chest. Despite emergency services' efforts, he was pronounced dead at the scene. The altercation stemmed from a moped transaction arranged via Snapchat between Kamari and a 17-year-old boy, whose identity is withheld due to legal reasons. They agreed on a sale price of £180, but upon meeting, Kamari took the cash and rode off with the moped, leaving the buyer feeling deceived. In retaliation, the 17-year-old armed himself with a 30cm machete and went to Kamari's house. Upon encountering Kamari, he stabbed him once to the chest, piercing his heart. Kamari attempted to flee on the moped, but collapsed shortly thereafter. The perpetrator surrendered to Hayes police station the following day, claiming self-defence. However, CCTV footage and witness testimonies contradicted his account, showing him pursuing Kamari with a machete. During the trial at the Old Bailey, the jury deliberated for over 13 hours before finding the teenager guilty of murder and possession of a bladed article. On the 16th of May 2025, the 17-year-old was sentenced to be detained for life with a minimum term of 20 years. At number 9 is Shakeil Thibou, who was sentenced on the 16th of May. On the 25th of August 2024, during the family day of the Notting Hill Carnival in West London, 32-year-old mother Cher Maximen was fatally stabbed in front of her 3-year-old daughter. The attack occurred amidst a violent altercation involving 20-year-old Shakeil Thibou and his brothers Sheldon and Shaheem near Goulburn Road. Cher, attempting to navigate through the crowd, was caught in the chaos and suffered a fatal stab wound to the groin from a zombie knife wielded by Shakeil Thibou. The incident unfolded rapidly, with Thibou initially targeting another individual, Adji Isaac, by thrusting the knife towards his stomach. As Cher tried to regain her footing after being knocked down, she was deliberately stabbed by Thibou, resulting in a 12-centimetre deep wound that led to massive blood loss. Despite undergoing 2 major operations, Cher succumbed to her injuries 6 days later. Thibou claimed in his defence that he had picked up the knife at the carnival and had acted in self-defence, asserting that Cher's death was accidental. However, the prosecution presented evidence that he had brought the weapon to the event, supported by the discovery of another blade in his residence. The jury at the Old Bailey rejected his claims, finding him guilty of murder, attempted grievous bodily harm, and possession of an offensive weapon. The trial also addressed the actions of Shakeil Thibou's brothers. Sheldon Thibou, who was 25, was found guilty of violent disorder and assaulting a police officer, while 22-year-old Shaheem Thibou was convicted of assaulting the same officer but was acquitted of violent disorder. On the 16th of May 2025, Shakeil Thibou was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 29 years. The judge condemned the attack as deliberate and senseless. At number 10 is Kevin Kelenda, who was sentenced on the 19th of May. On the 19th of October 2023, 36-year-old Tyrone Pinnock was fatally stabbed in a swift and unprovoked attack on Kensal Road in North Kensington in London. The assailant, later identified as 16-year-old Kevin Kelenda from Kenton Park Crescent in Harrow, approached Tyrone and stabbed him in the chest with a lock knife. Despite immediate assistance from passers-by and a rapid response from emergency services, Tyrone succumbed to his injuries at the scene. The Metropolitan Police launched an investigation utilising CCTV footage and forensic evidence to identify Kelenda as the suspect. The footage showed Kelenda following Tyrone before carrying out the fatal attack. He was arrested within days and charged with murder and possession of a bladed article. During the trial at Wood Green Crown Court, the prosecution presented evidence of the calculated nature of the attack. Kelenda had been seen loitering in the area before targeting Tyrone. The motive for the attack remains unclear, as there was no known connection between the two individuals. Kelenda denied the murder charge but admitted to possessing the knife. However, the jury found him guilty in March of 2025. The court heard that the attack was brutal and cold-blooded, lasting only seconds but resulting in fatal injuries. On the 19th of May 2025, Kelenda, who was now 18, was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 17 years. At number 11 is Jake Saunders, who was sentenced on the 20th of May. On the evening of the 10th of December 2024, 75-year-old Anthony Jacob was brutally attacked in Weymouth, Dorset, after intervening in an act of vandalism. Anthony witnessed 19-year-old Saunders damaging a white VW transporter van on Abbotsbury Road. When Anthony confronted Saunders about his actions, Saunders responded with extreme violence, knocking Anthony to the ground and repeatedly kicking and stamping on his head. Emergency services arrived promptly and Anthony was transported to the hospital with severe head and facial injuries. Despite medical efforts, he succumbed to his injuries 9 days later, on the 19th of December. Anthony, affectionately known as Tony to his family and friends, was a well-respected member of the Weymouth community, remembered for his kindness and selflessness. His family described him as a beloved father, grandfather, and brother, stating that his sudden passing had left a void that could never be filled. Following the assault, Dorset police launched an extensive investigation. Saunders was located and arrested the same evening in Newstead Road. While in custody, he assaulted 3 police officers, leading to additional charges. A thorough forensic examination of Saunders' clothing, along with multiple witness statements, provided compelling evidence linking him to the attack. Initially, he was charged with attempted murder. However, these charges were upgraded to murder following Anthony's death. Saunders appeared at Bournemouth Crown Court, where he pleaded guilty to the murder of Anthony, 3 counts of assaulting an emergency worker, and 2 counts of criminal damage. On the 20th of May 2025, Saunders was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years. The judge condemned Saunders' actions as a senseless and unprovoked attack, emphasising the devastating impact on Anthony's family and the wider community. At number 12 is Christine Kekkonen, who was sentenced on the 23rd of May. On the 9th of May 2024, 36-year-old Kekkonen fatally stabbed her husband, 41-year-old Henry Kekkonen, in their shared bed at their home on Dunsford Terrace in Boltonsborough in Somerset. Following the incident, Christine sent a text message to her mother at 16:21 stating, "Mum, please get the police here now. Please, I've done something awful." Emergency services arrived within 15 minutes, but despite their efforts, Henry was pronounced dead at the scene. In the subsequent investigation, police found heavy blood staining on the couple's bed and recovered a knife from the floor on the left-hand side of the bed. Kekkonen was arrested on suspicion of murder and was later charged by detectives from the Avon and Somerset's Major Crime Investigation Team. During her trial at Bristol Crown Court, Kekkonen claimed that she had not intended to kill her husband and that she had been extremely fearful, believing that people were watching her through her phone. She also stated that she often dissociates and could not remember events of the day. Despite her claims, the jury found Kekkonen guilty of murder on the 29th of November 2024. The court heard that Henry was attacked between 4 and 4:20 that day, and that Christine had sent a text message to her mother immediately after the incident, pleading with her to send the police as she had done something awful. The detective superintendent who led the investigation described Henry as a loving husband who, aged 41, had so much more life to live, and she stated that those opportunities were cruelly taken from him. She acknowledged that Christine was a vulnerable woman, but stated that her actions had cut short the life of a man who had completely doted on her. On the 23rd of May 2025, Kekkonen was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 16 years.